That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over the Coronado Naval Base, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Hale stood at attention, his boots planted firm on the packed sand, the faint scent of salt air mingling with the metallic tang of gun oil. His SEAL team, Echo Platoon, formed a precise line beside him, rifles slung across their chests, faces etched with the quiet focus of men who had stared down worse than a dawn drill. At Marcus's heel sat Rex, his Belgian Malinois partner, ears perked, black eyes scanning the horizon as if threats lurked in the distant waves. "Platoon, attention!" barked Lieutenant Commander Ellis, the officer in charge, his voice cutting through the morning hush like a blade. The team snapped to, heels clicking in unison, chins up, gazes locked forward. Ellis paced the line, his polished boots kicking up small puffs of dust. He was a veteran of 2 deployments, his frame lean and unyielding, the kind of leader who demanded perfection because lives depended on it. "Today, we run the perimeter search. Hale, your K9 leads. Keep it tight, no deviations." Marcus nodded once, sharp and affirmative. "Yes, sir." Rex shifted slightly, his harness creaking, but held his sit without a twitch. The bond between them was forged in the grind of countless hours, night runs through mock villages, scent trails in the desert heat, the dog's nose proving sharper than any tech. Rex wasn't just a tool, he was Marcus's shadow, loyal to the core, sensing tension in a handler's breath before it showed in his eyes. In the SEALs, where trust was the thinnest margin between mission success and catastrophe, that loyalty was everything. The drill commenced with mechanical precision. The platoon fanned out along the simulated urban barrier, a chain-link fence rigged with hidden threats, dummy IEDs, concealed entry points. Marcus gave the hand signal, a subtle flick of his fingers, and Rex surged forward. Nose low to the ground, tail a straight line of intent. The dog's paws patted softly over the gravel, pausing at a cluster of crates where the air held the faint, engineered whiff of explosives. He sat, alert bark low in his throat, alerting without drama. "Good work," Ellis called from the observation post, clipboard in hand. "Hale, advance the team." Marcus relayed the command, his voice steady over the radio static. "Clear Sector 1, moving to 2. The men flowed like water, covering angles, boots crunching in sync. It was routine, the kind of exercise that honed instincts without the chaos of real ops. But as they rounded the final barrier, something shifted. Rex halted abruptly, not at a planted scent, but at the edge of the compound, where a civilian access road met the base perimeter. Marcus froze, scanning. A small figure huddled against the fence, a boy, no older than 10, his clothes rumpled, face streaked with dirt and tears. He clutched a worn backpack, eyes wide with fear, as if he'd wandered too far from the nearby town. The base's outer patrols should have caught him, but in the pre-dawn fog, he'd slipped through. Rex whined softly, pressing his nose to the chain link, not aggressive but insistent, his body language screaming concern rather than threat. "Contact!" Marcus reported into his radio, keeping his tone even. "Civilian miner at Grid 9, non-hostile." The platoon held position, weapons low but ready. Ellis approached at a jog, his expression hardening. "Secure the area. Hale, stand down the dog." But Rex didn't budge. He pawed gently at the fence, a low rumble in his chest, not a growl, but a plea. The boy flinched, then reached out a trembling hand, as if drawn by the dog's unyielding gaze. Marcus felt the pull in his gut, the instinct to kneel, to assess. Regulations were clear. Unauthorized civilians on base triggered immediate lockdown, escort off-site. No engagement beyond containment. Yet the kid looked half-starved, lost, his breaths coming in shallow hitches that spoke of more than a wrong turn. Petty officer, Ellis said, arriving with 2 MPs in tow, his voice laced with warning. Protocol: detain and notify civil authorities. The dog stays back. Marcus hesitated, his hand hovering near Rex's collar. The Malinois had saved lives before, sniffing out ambushes in the sandbox, alerting to hidden wounds on fallen brothers. Now, his focus locked on this child, sensing something the humans missed. The faint metallic scent of blood, perhaps, or the acrid edge of fear masking injury. Sir, Rex is indicating. Permission to... Denied, Ellis cut in, eyes narrowing. We're not running a rescue up here. This is training. Follow orders, Hale. The platoon watched, silent sentinels in the rising light. Marcus's jaw tightened, the weight of the chain of command pressing like a rucksack overload. Obedience was drilled into them from day one, blind trust in the hierarchy that kept the unit whole. But conscience whispered otherwise. A quiet voice amid the discipline. The boy whimpered, curling smaller against the fence, and Rex strained forward, whining again, his loyalty pulling Marcus toward a line he knew better than to cross. In that suspended moment, with the sun cresting the horizon and gilding the base in gold, Marcus made his choice. He unclipped Rex's lead, ignoring the sharp intake of breath from Ellis. "Easy, boy," he murmured, voice low for the dog alone. Rex nosed through a gap in the fence, gentle as a whisper, licking the boy's hand. The child stilled, terror easing into tentative trust, his small fingers burying in the dog's fur. Ellis stepped forward, radio already crackling with base security. "Hale, that's an order violation. Stand down now." But Marcus held his ground, eyes meeting his commander's. The act was small, a handler trusting his partner's instinct over protocol. But in the rigid world of ranks and routines, it rippled like a stone in still water. The MPs moved in. The boy was carefully extracted, but not before Rex's alert prompted a quick med check. A hidden gash on the kid's leg, infected and feverish, overlooked in the haze of his panic. Civil authorities arrived minutes later, confirming he'd run from the unstable home, collapsing from dehydration en route. Word spread through the platoon like radio chatter in the wind. By midday, as the team debriefed in the humid shade of the barracks, whispers of Hale's defiance hung in the air. Ellis pulled Marcus aside in the CO's office, the door clicking shut with finality. "You think you're a hero? This isn't the movies. One slip and the whole unit pays." Marcus stood at attention, Rex waiting outside, paws crossed patiently. "Sir, Rex detected the injury. Protocol saved a life today." Ellis's gaze hardened, but beneath it flickered something unspoken. Respect, perhaps, or the shadow of his own past choices. "Investigation starts tomorrow. You're off rotation until it's cleared." As Marcus exited, the base hummed with its unyielding rhythm, helicopters thumping overhead, boots marching in the distance, the eternal cycle of order. But for the first time, Marcus felt the fracture, a moral fault line in the foundation of duty. Rex trotted beside him, head high, as if understanding the cost already. Little did they know, this breach would lead them beyond the fence, into a hospital corridor where loyalty would be tested far from the battlefield. The boy, named Alex, was rushed to the Naval Medical Center, stabilized but comatose from the infection's toll. Regulations forbade K9s on hospital grounds, yet Rex's vigil began that very afternoon, waiting at the entrance gates, refusing to leave until his handler returned. Marcus watched from afar, heart heavy with the impending reckoning, knowing one act of compassion had ignited a chain that would challenge the very soul of their service. The afternoon sun beat down on the Naval Medical Center's parking lot, turning the asphalt into a shimmering haze. Marcus Hale leaned against the chain-link fence separating the base from the hospital grounds, his uniform still dusted from the morning's drill. Rex sat at his feet, uncharacteristically still, his dark eyes fixed on the glass doors of the emergency wing. The Malinois hadn't moved since the MPs had escorted Alex inside hours earlier. His usual restless energy replaced by a vigilant patience that tugged at Marcus's chest. The dog's fur was warm against his boot, a silent anchor in the swelling uncertainty. Base security had cordoned off the area after the incident, yellow tape fluttering in the sea breeze like a warning flag. Whispers among the passing sailors grew into murmurs, a K9 alerting on a civilian kid, a handler ignoring a direct order. Marcus could feel the weight of their glances, the subtle shift in posture as colleagues nodded his way, not with outright judgment yet, but with the cautious distance of men weighing loyalties. In Echo Platoon, reputation was currency, earned in the sweat of shared ops and unbreakable trust. One misstep could erode it like sand under tide. Petty Officer Hale, a voice called from the administration building, crisp over the hum of idling ambulances. It was Chief Warrant Officer Ramirez, the unit's administrative officer, clipboard in hand and expression neutral as polished brass. Marcus straightened, snapping a salute. At ease. CO wants you in briefing room 3. Bring the dog. Leash him tight. Yes, sir. Marcus clipped the lead to Rex's harness, the metal snap echoing in the quiet lot. The dog rose without resistance, but his head tilted toward the hospital doors one last time, a soft huff escaping his muzzle. Marcus knelt briefly, running a hand along Rex's flank, feeling the steady rise and fall of ribs beneath the tactical vest. We'll sort this, boy. Stay sharp. Rex's tail gave a single wag, brief and affirming, before they turned toward the base proper. The briefing room smelled of stale coffee and oiled leather, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like distant rotors. Lieutenant Commander Ellis waited at the head of the table, flanked by Ramirez and a JAG representative from the base legal office, a sharp-eyed lieutenant named Torres, her uniform impeccable, notebook open. Marcus entered, Rex heeling perfectly at his left, and came to attention. Reporting as ordered, sir. Ellis gestured to a chair, his face a mask of controlled authority. Sit. This is preliminary. The boy's stable, fever down, but he's not out of the woods. Civil services are handling family notification. He paused, eyes flicking to Rex, who settled at Marcus's feet with a quiet sigh. Your actions this morning bypassed protocol. Article 92, failure to obey order or regulation. Explain. Marcus kept his gaze forward, voice level, recounting the drill's progression, the perimeter sweep, Rex's unexpected halt, the boy's condition. Sir, the dog indicated distress. Visual confirmed dehydration, possible injury. I assessed threat level as minimal, child unarmed. Detaining without aid could have escalated. Torres jotted notes, her pen scratching softly. Protocol mandates immediate containment and external handoff. No personal intervention. The K9's role is detection, not comfort. Her tone held no accusation, only the dry precision of law. Ellis leaned forward, elbows on the table, the wood creaking under his weight. Hale, you've got 4 years with Echo, spotless record. Rex has pulled our asses out of fire twice in theater. But this isn't the field. Base regs protect the chain. Civilians complicate jurisdiction. You think one kid's worth the scrutiny? Marcus met his commander's eyes, the room's air thick with the unspoken, duty drilled into him. Orders were the spine of the unit, bending them invited chaos. Yet Rex's instincts had never failed, sniffing insurgents in Afghan dust storms, detecting fractures in the field before medevac arrived. The dog had sensed Alex's hidden wound, the infection's subtle rot beneath the fear. Sir, if we'd followed strict protocol, the injury might have gone undetected until too late. Rex bridged the gap. Ramirez cleared his throat, glancing at his clipboard. Med report corroborates deep laceration, septic. Kids from off-base, foster system glitch ran during a transfer. Without the alert, ER might have triaged him lower. A beat of silence followed, the clock on the wall ticking like a metronome. Ellis rubbed his jaw, the faint stubble rasping under his fingers. Appreciate the intent, petty officer. But intent doesn't shield the platoon from audits. JAG's launching a full review. Interviews with the team, witness statements. You're restricted to base, no external contact, and the dog. He trailed off, eyes narrowing at Rex, who lifted his head, ears pricked as if understanding every word. Restricted how, sir? Marcus's pulse quickened, a rare crack in his composure. K9s are assets, Hale. Hospitals are no-go zone. Health codes. Liability. Rex stays in kennels until cleared. Ellis's order landed heavy, the finality in his voice brooking no appeal. Marcus's hand tightened on the chair arm, wood biting into his palm. Rex whined low, shifting closer, his nose nudging Marcus's knee, a gesture of unwavering support amid the institutional tide. The bond between them was more than training. It was the quiet pact of shared silences after ops, the dog's head on his lap during redeployment waits. Separating them now felt like severing a limb. "Permission to speak, sir?" Marcus asked, voice steady despite the churn inside. Ellis nodded curtly. Rex alerted on the boy. He's bonded to the outcome. Kenneling him ignores that loyalty, the same loyalty that makes him effective in the field. Torres interjected, tone measured. Loyalty's commendable, but regulations exist for a reason. Precedent shows unchecked handler discretion leads to breaches. The discussion stretched, voices measured, circling the moral fault line. Obedience as the bedrock of discipline versus the human cost of rigid lines. Outside, the base carried on, trucks rumbling past. A distant whistle from PT formation. But inside, the air grew taut, charged with the ripple of one man's choice. By evening, as Marcus led Rex back to the kennels under the sodium glow of floodlights, the dog's steps dragged, paws scuffing the concrete for the first time in memory. The enclosure's chain link rattled as Marcus latched the gate, Rex pressing his muzzle through the wire, eyes locked on his handler. "Hang in there, partner," Marcus murmured, the words lost in the cooling dusk. He lingered, watching the Malinois pace the small space, then turned away, the weight of isolation settling like fog. Word of the restrictions spread through the barracks by lights out, sailors exchanging quiet nods over MREs in the mess. In the platoon's ready room, Ellis addressed the team. His briefing clipped, "Hale's under review. No speculation, focus on the mission." But eyes lingered on the empty spot where Marcus usually sat, the absence a subtle fracture in their ranks. That night, Marcus lay on his bunk, the hum of the AC unit a poor substitute for Rex's breathing nearby. Reports filtered in via text from a platoon mate. Alex still unconscious, monitors beeping in the ICU, his small form dwarfed by tubes and sheets. Regulations barred visits, but Marcus's mind replayed the boy's tentative grip on Rex's fur, the first spark of trust in those wide eyes. Dawn broke with routine's unyielding grip. Reveille at 0500, boots hitting deck in unison. Marcus reported for light duty, sorting gear in the armory, the metallic clink of magazines a monotonous rhythm. But by mid-morning, a runner from medical arrived, breathless. "The dog's at the gates again, sir. Won't leave. Security's holding him off." Marcus's heart sank. Rex, defying the kennel handlers in the night, slipping his lead to resume his vigil. The act was instinctual, pure loyalty unbound by human rules, a mirror to Marcus's own defiance. Ellis was summoned, his arrival marked by the crunch of gravel under tires. "Get that animal secured," he ordered, but his voice held a trace of reluctance, the moral tension coiling tighter. As MPs approached, Rex sat firm at the hospital fence, tail still, gaze unwavering on the doors where Alex lay. The standoff drew onlookers, nurses pausing shifts, sailors on break, whispers turning to a quiet crowd. In that moment, the rigid world of base protocol bent under the weight of one dog's unyielding heart, forcing the institution to confront the humanity it so carefully contained. Marcus watched from the armory window, knowing the reckoning had only begun, its echoes destined to reshape more than one life. The sodium lights of the hospital perimeter cast elongated shadows across the gravel, turning the standoff into a tableau of quiet defiance. Rex held his ground, haunches planted firm against the chain link, his black coat absorbing the glow like a sentinel in the night. MPs circled at a distance, batons loose in their grips, radios crackling with terse updates to Central Command. The air carried the sharp tang of antiseptic drifting from the vents, mingling with the distant crash of waves against the Coronado shore. Marcus Hale stood frozen at the armory window, his breath fogging the glass in shallow bursts, the cool metal of a rifle crate pressing into his palm. Lieutenant Commander Ellis arrived in a base truck, tires crunching to a halt, his door slamming with the precision of a hatch seal. He strode forward, uniform crisp despite the late hour, eyes scanning the growing cluster of onlookers, nurses in scrubs pausing mid-shift, a cluster of sailors from the adjacent ward drawing phones from pockets. "Stand down the perimeter," Ellis ordered the lead MP, voice low but carrying like a command over a PA. "And get Hale out here, now." Marcus moved on autopilot, boots echoing down the armory corridor, the weight of his sidearm a familiar anchor at his hip. He emerged into the cooling evening, the breeze tugging at his collar, and reported at attention 10 paces from Ellis. "Sir." Ellis didn't return the salute immediately, his gaze fixed on Rex. The Malinois hadn't flinched at the truck's approach, his ears forward, tail a motionless flag. A low whine escaped him, directed not at the humans, but toward the building's glow, where Alex lay in his induced coma, vital signs beeping steadily under fluorescent scrutiny. "Your partner thinks he's on a mission," Ellis said, tone edged with frustration. "Explain this breach. Kennel logs show he slipped the handler at 2200 hours, padded right through an unsecured gate." Marcus swallowed, the dryness in his throat like sand from a training range. "Sir, Rex's tracking is elite. He associates the boy's scent with the alert. Separation goes against his conditioning." The words felt inadequate, stripped of the years he'd invested in the dog's responses, scent imprinting in humid labs, trust building in the isolation of mock ops. Rex wasn't disobeying. He was fulfilling the bond that made him irreplaceable. The MP sergeant stepped up, helmet under arm. "We've got protocol for this, Commander. Sedate and relocate. Can't have a working K9 loose on civilian grounds. Insurance nightmare." His voice held the rote efficiency of procedure, but his eyes flicked to Rex with a trace of reluctance, the dog's unwavering stare cutting through the formality. Ellis rubbed the bridge of his nose, the faint lines of fatigue etching deeper. "No sedation. Hale, leash him. We're bringing him in for observation." Marcus nodded, approaching slowly, his hand extended palm up in the signal Rex knew as trust. The dog rose to meet him, nose bumping Marcus's fingers in greeting, wet and warm, before allowing the lead to clip on without resistance. But as they turned toward the truck, Rex planted his paws, a firm tug pulling Marcus back toward the fence. The onlookers murmured, phones now openly recording, the soft clicks of shutters piercing the tension. "Easy," Marcus murmured, kneeling to Rex's level, his free hand stroking the dog's neck, feeling the pulse quicken under the fur. "We've got this." Rex's eyes met his, dark and knowing, and then shifted back to the doors. Inside, through the haze of exhaustion, Marcus pictured the ICU, monitors charting Alex's shallow breaths, the boy's small hand empty without the comfort of fur to grip. Regulations walled them out, K9s barred from sterile zones, handlers sidelined during reviews, but the moral chasm yawned wider. By morning, the incident had escalated beyond base whispers. The JAG review convened in a conference room overlooking the bay, sunlight glinting off the water like scattered brass casings. Lieutenant Torres led the session, her questions probing like a debrief after a failed insertion. Chief Ramirez sat beside her, transcribing, while Ellis observed from the corner, arms crossed. Marcus stood at parade rest, Rex leashed to the chair leg, the dog's head resting on his boot, a quiet presence amid the legal scrutiny. Petty Officer Hale, Torres began, flipping a page in her file. Witness statements confirm the dog's unauthorized exit. Hospital security reports multiple attempts since yesterday. Sitting at the gate, alerting on staff until shooed. This isn't isolated, it's a pattern tied to your initial defiance. Her pen tapped rhythmically, echoing the tick of the wall clock. Marcus kept his voice even, eyes on the horizon through the window. Ma'am, Rex's behavior stems from the bond formed during the alert. He's trained to follow through on indications. Lives depend on it in the field. Dismissing that here ignores his purpose. Ellis interjected, leaning forward. Purpose has limits, Hale. The platoon's under audit because of this. Media's sniffing around. Local outlets got wind from a nurse's tip. One viral clip of a SEAL dog guarding a kid, and we're headlines. Military mismanages heroic canine. The room fell silent, the weight of institutional exposure settling like humidity before a storm. Ramirez cleared his throat. Med update. Boys responding to antibiotics, but prognosis tied to emotional stability. Psych eval notes attachment to the dog from the extraction. Allowing contact could aid recovery. Off record, docs are asking. Torres's expression remained neutral, but her pause spoke volumes. Precedent is clear. No exceptions for sentiment, but the command has discretion for morale factors. She closed her notebook, the snap decisive. Review pauses pending higher approval. Hale, you're on administrative leave. Monitor the dog, no hospital proximity. Commander, recommend a waiver petition. Ellis nodded curtly, the concession a crack in the armor of protocol. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus led Rex out into the corridor, the linoleum cool underfoot, the faint echo of footsteps from passing corpsmen. The Malinois pressed close, his warmth a reminder of the loyalty that bridged human frailties. Outside, the base stirred with midday routine, a helo lifting off with a rhythmic thump, sailors double-timing to chow. But the petition loomed, a formal appeal threading duty and conscience, its outcome rippling toward uncharted ground. Afternoon brought the first wave of external pressure. A base PA announced restricted access to the hospital perimeter, but not before a local reporter slipped a card to a platoon mate. Inquiries about the SEAL and his loyal dog saving a foster child. Marcus pocketed the card unread, focusing instead on Rex's training pen, running basic commands to keep the edge sharp. Sit, down, search, each response a reaffirmation of their partnership. Yet the dog's glances toward the distant medical center betrayed the pull, his whines soft during rests. Ellis summoned Marcus to his office as the sun dipped, the room's blinds casting slatted shadows across the desk. "Petitions filed," he said, handing over a copy, the paper crisp and official. "JAG's pushing for denial, but medical's advocating. This could set policy, K9 emotional support in non-combat scenarios." His tone held a grudging respect, the moral tension easing into strategic calculation. "You're walking a line, Hale, but if it saves the kid's progress, the unit adapts." Marcus saluted, the motion held a fraction longer, gratitude unspoken. As he exited, Rex waiting patiently outside, the weight shifted from isolation to possibility. The institution, rigid as it was, began to bend, one ethical stand at a time. But the true test awaited inside those doors, where a child's awakening would demand more than protocol could contain. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The petition hung in bureaucratic limbo for 2 days, its fate relayed through terse emails and clipped briefings that echoed through the base like distant gunfire. Marcus Hale moved through his restricted routine with mechanical precision, morning PT in the dim glow of the gym, solitary runs along the fenced perimeter where the ocean's salt spray misted his face, and afternoons in the K9 training yard, working Rex through scent drills amid the dry rustle of palm fronds. The Malinois responded with flawless focus, nose to the ground, alerts sharp and unerring, but his pauses grew longer, head turning toward the hospital's distant silhouette, a low huff escaping as if scenting the boy's fragile recovery on the wind. Base life pulsed onward, unyielding in its rhythm. Echo Platoon's morning formation assembled under the flagpole, heels clicking on concrete still cool from the night, the snap of salutes punctuating the national anthem's strains. Marcus stood at the rear, Rex heeling silently, their presence a quiet anomaly amid the platoon's synchronized lines. Lieutenant Commander Ellis avoided his gaze during the brief, his orders delivered with the flat efficiency of a field report. Perimeter patrols resume full strength. Hale, light duty only, no field assets. The words landed without inflection, but the subtext lingered. The commander's stance a fraction wider, as if bracing for the institutional aftershocks. By midday, the air thickened with humidity, the sun baking the asphalt into waves of heat that distorted the horizon. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow in the armory, cataloguing gear with deliberate care, the oiled click of magazines sliding into crates, the faint metallic scent of preserved ammunition. His phone buzzed once, a secure line from JAG. Approval granted, conditional waiver for one supervised visit. The terms were ironclad. No media, medical oversight only. K9 muzzled and leashed. Marcus exhaled slowly, the relief tempered by the formality, like a ceasefire in contested territory. He reported to Ellis's office immediately, the door's hinges whispering shut behind him. Rex sat at attention, ears perked to the room's sterile hum of the AC unit. "Sir," Waver confirmed, "medical cleared for 1400 hours." Ellis looked up from his desk, stacks of reports fanned like a briefing map, his eyes assessing Marcus with the measured scrutiny of a post-mission eval. "Understood," Ellis replied, setting his pen down with a soft tap. "Torres will escort. This isn't precedent, Hale. It's a one-off for the kid's psych stability. Get in, facilitate the alert if needed, get out. Any deviation, and the review restarts." His voice held no warmth, but the concession was there, etched in the subtle softening of his jawline, a veteran's nod to the grey areas where protocol met humanity. "Yes, sir." Marcus saluted, the motion crisp, and led Rex out into the corridor, where fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like persistent radio static. The walk to the hospital felt interminable. Boots scuffing the path lined with oleander bushes, heavy with faded blooms, the distant thump of a helo training overhead, underscoring the base's ceaseless vigilance. Rex's leash remained taut, his steps purposeful, nose twitching at the shifting scents. Antiseptic, rubber tires, the faint undercurrent of illness carried on the breeze. Lieutenant Torres met them at the entrance, her uniform starched, tablet in hand. "Petty officer, follow protocol. No unsolicited contact. Medical teams prepped the room. Boy's vitals stable, but he's minimally responsive." She scanned Rex with a clinical eye, the muzzle clipping on with a decisive snap that drew a muffled whine from the dog. Marcus's hand steadied on the harness, feeling the warmth of muscle beneath, a silent reassurance amid the clinical chill. The ICU corridor stretched white and echoing, monitors beeping in synchronized cadence, the air cool and laced with the sharp bite of disinfectants. Nurses nodded curtly as they passed, their glances lingering on Rex, a working K9 in sterile territory, an anomaly that bent the rules like light through warped glass. Alex lay in a side room, small against the elevated bed, IV lines tracing paths across his arm, his face pale but no longer fever-flushed. The psych consultant, a civilian doctor in a lab coat, stood by the chart station, her expression neutral. "He's shown agitation without anchors," she said softly, voice pitched for discretion. "The dog's scent might stabilize. Proceed." Marcus unclipped the leash at the door, Rex moving forward with measured steps, muzzle brushing the tile floor. The Malinois approached the bed, nose lifting to catch the boy's scent, a soft huff confirming the bond. Alex stirred, eyelids fluttering, his hand twitching toward the edge of the sheet. Marcus watched, breath held, the room's quiet amplifying the dog's gentle nudge against the rail. A paw lifting, then settling, wet nose pressing warm against small fingers. The boy's eyes opened slowly, hazy at first, then sharpening on Rex's form. A faint smile cracked his lips, fingers curling into the fur, the grip tentative but trusting. "Dog. Good dog," Alex whispered, voice raspy from disuse, the words pulling a collective exhale from the room. The monitors steadied, heart rate dipping into calm rhythms, the consultant noting the shift with quiet approval. Torres stepped back, tablet forgotten, her posture easing imperceptibly. Vital response positive. 5 minutes, then extract. But the moment stretched. Rex settling beside the bed, head on the mattress, his presence a bridge across the institutional divide. Marcus stood, sentinel at the foot, arms crossed, the weight of the waiver feeling lighter, the moral tension uncoiling into something resembling resolution. Word leaked, as it always did in tight-knit bases. By evening chow, sailors in the mess hall exchanged low murmurs over trays of rehydrated rice and protein packs, the story filtering through like smoke from a suppressed round. A nurse's offhand comment to a spouse, a blurry photo snapped from a window. Suddenly local news vans idled at the gate, reporters badgering security for details on the Seal Dogs hospital vigil. Ellis convened an emergency brief in the ready room, the platoon's chairs scraping as they filed in, faces taut under the harsh overheads. "This stays internal," he stated, pacing the front, his boots marking time on the scuffed linoleum. "No statements. Hale's actions under review, but the outcome's clear. The kid's awake, recovery accelerated. Commands acknowledging the waiver's impact." He paused, eyes sweeping the room, landing on Marcus at the back with Rex at heel. "It sets a tone. Loyalty like that, human or canine, reminds us why we serve." The platoon nodded in unison, the silence heavy with unspoken solidarity, the fracture mending into a stronger seam. Marcus felt the shift, subtle as a tide turn. Not absolution, but adaptation, the institution absorbing the lesson of conscience over blind order. That night, as Marcus walked Rex along the darkened perimeter, the dog steps lighter, tail giving a rare, full wag, the baselights flickered like stars against the ink-black sky. Alex's awakening was a pivot, but the ripples extended. JAG memos circulating on K9 emotional protocols, whispers of policy tweaks in handler training. Yet scrutiny lingered, the media's gaze pressing like an unseen patrol, hinting at a public reckoning that could elevate or ensnare. In the quiet bond between man and dog, Marcus sensed the true cost. Integrity's quiet forge, shaping legacies one defiant step at a time. The days following Alex's awakening unfolded with the deliberate pace of a post-mission debrief, each hour measured in reports and consultations that threaded through the base like encrypted comms. Marcus Hale reported to the administrative wing at 800 sharp, his boots polished to a mirror sheen, Rex healing with the quiet precision of a shadow. The corridor's fluorescent hum mingled with the faint scent of printer ink and fresh coffee from the adjacent galley, a reminder of the machinery that governed their world. Lieutenant Torres waited outside the conference room. her tablet balanced on one arm, expression as composed as a field manual. "Petty officer," she greeted, nodding to Rex. "Final review. Commands incorporating the waiver data, vitals logs from medical, psych notes on the boy's response. Your input shapes the addendum." Marcus entered the door, sealing with a soft pneumatic hiss, and took his seat at the polished oak table. Ellis sat at the head, flanked by Ramirez and a senior JAG captain from Regional Command, the air thick with the weight of precedent in the making. Ellis slid a folder across, its edges crisp. "Hale, the incident's closed. No charges. Article 92 violation waived on humanitarian grounds. But this involves protocol." He tapped the top sheet, a draft directive outlining K9 integration in medical support scenarios. Supervised access for bonded animals in recovery cases, handler discretion balanced against liability checks. Your stand prompted it. Rex's vigil forced us to look at loyalty beyond the leash. How it sustains, not just detects. Marcus scanned the lines, the formal language underscoring the shift, from rigid exclusion to measured inclusion, ethics woven into the chain of command. "Sir." Rex followed his training, honoring that saved the mission and the kid. The captain leaned forward, his uniform pins glinting under the lights. "Precisely. Precedents like this refine the system. We've seen it in theater, dogs alerting to stress in patrols. Extending here sets a standard." Ramirez nodded, adding, "Platoon's morale's up. Handlers are petitioning for similar trials in vet programs." The meeting adjourned with handshakes, firm and brief, the subtle camaraderie of men who valued adaptation over stasis. As Marcus led Rex out into the sun-drenched quad, the base thrummed with midday activity, a formation drilling in the distance, voices barking cadence, the low whine of a forklift in the supply yard. The sailors paused in their paths, offering nods that carried more warmth than before, a quiet acknowledgement that one handler's conscience had fortified the whole. By afternoon, the external ripples broke surface. The local news segment aired at 1700, a measured report from the hospital steps, grainy footage of Rex at the gate, overlaid with Alex's recovery statement, his small voice steady on camera. "The dog knew I was hurt. He waited for me. No drama, just facts. The SEAL's defiance, the institutional pivot, the boy's discharge planned for week's end. Reporters pressed at the base gate, but public affairs handled it with scripted restraint. Naval protocols evolved to support welfare. Case closed." Ellis pulled Marcus aside in the ready room that evening. The space empty, save for the scent of gun cleaner and stacked cots. "Media's framing you as the symbol. Loyalty beyond orders. Command's okay with it, low-key. Mentor the new handlers on this. Integrate it into training briefs." His tone held the gruff edge of approval, eyes meeting Marcus's in a rare, unguarded moment. "You walk the line, Hale. Unit's stronger for it." Marcus saluted, the gesture lingering a beat, gratitude etched in the set of his shoulders. "Understood, sir. Rex and I are ready." Outside, under the floodlight's amber glow, the platoon gathered informally around the picnic tables, MRE wrappers crinkling as they shared stories. Whispers turned to toasts, non-alcoholic per regs, with canteens raised to the dog who outranked protocol. Laughter rippled, restrained but genuine, the bond of Echo Platoon knitting tighter, loyalty's lesson embedded like a new drill. The next morning brought Alex's discharge, a quiet affair in the hospital lobby where sea air filtered through open doors. Marcus arrived with Rex, leashed and muzzled per lingering terms, the Malinois' tail wagging low as the boy emerged, backpack slung over one shoulder. A social worker at his side. Alex knelt, burying his face in Rex's neck, the dog's muffled huff warm against his cheek. "Thanks for waiting," the boy murmured, fingers tracing the harness. Marcus crouched beside them, voice low. "He knew you needed him. Take care of yourself, kid. The social worker nodded, her clipboard tucked away. Foster placement stable. Therapy lined up. The dog's visit turned his outlook. As they parted, Alex's wave lingered, a small hand against the glass of the departing van, Rex straining to follow until Marcus's hand steadied him. The act closed a loop, compassion's echo fading into routine. But the transformation lingered. Marcus, once sidelined, now a quiet mentor in handler sessions, recounting the vigil's procedural tweaks to wide-eyed recruits. Weeks later, during a standard K9 certification at the training fields, the wind carried the salt tang of the bay, dust devils swirling around the mock barriers. Marcus signaled Rex forward, the dog surging with unerring focus, but paused mid-search to demonstrate the new protocol. A simulated medical alert, handler assessing beyond threat detection. The observing chief nodded approval, clipboard marking the evolution. Hale's case integrated seamlessly, he noted to the group. Shows how one bond reforms the playbook. In the barracks that night, as Reveille's echo faded and the base settled into its watchful hush, Marcus sat on his bunk, Rex curled at his feet, the dog's head rising with a contented sigh. The institution had learned, not through upheaval, but through quiet reform, integrity's cost yielding a legacy of balanced duty. Marcus's choice had rippled outward, a symbol etched in policy and platoon law, proving that true strength lay in the moral courage to bridge orders and heart. Epilogue. In the end, the SEAL and his dog stood as testaments to loyalty's quiet power, reminding every rank that conscience, once awakened, reshapes the chain that binds them all. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of the SEAL's dog waited at the hospital every day, until the child he saved woke up. See you in the next one.